See my friend Matt up in Bozeman, and this morning he called me and canceled.
Robin's friend isn't able to meet with us. Now we got to find something else to do.
I mean, I have some ideas, but I don't know how popular they would be.
What idea?
I've been thinking about Ken Grant.
Ken's a high school friend of mine. We were best friends from about 7th grade through about 11th grade. And he's always sending me out an invitation to go boating with him.
I wouldn't have a problem going boating with Ken.
Christine hates Ken, though. I don't know what to do about it.
Welcome back, my friends. Today we're going back in time. Not to the dramatic divorces, not to the moving trucks and the courtroom whispers. We're going back to the moments that made those divorces inevitable. The quiet cracks in the foundation that everyone tried to ignore, but that split the entire family wide open. We're diving deep into two scandals that exposed the truth about the Brown family long before it was official, one from the outside and one from deep within. So picture this. The family is trying to find its footing in Flagstaff. Things are tense, money is tight, but they're still trying to act like this big, happy, united Plural family. And then, Kody gets a text message. It's from an old high school buddy of his, a guy named Ken. Now, Ken isn't just any friend. He represents the mainstream Mormon world, the very world the Browns left behind to build their polygamist life. And this text, it's not a "hey, how are the kids" kind of text. No. According to the TLC script, what Ken tells Kody is absolutely brutal. He says, and I'm quoting here, "Dude, you really should just divorce 3 of your wives and come back to the church so you can be saved or whatever." Just let that hang in the air for a second. This isn't advice. This is a spiritual ultimatum. Ken is telling Kody that his entire family, 3 of his 4 marriages, the mothers of most of his children, are obstacles to his very salvation. That to be saved, to be right with God, he needs to erase them. Think about the sheer weight of that. Think about the violence of that idea. So, Kody brings this to his wives. And the way each wife reacts is like a masterclass in where they stand emotionally and how safe they feel. Janelle, ever the pragmatist, seems to brush it off. The script says she basically thought Ken was just being a stupid guy. She's not one to get overly emotional about outside opinions. Robin, who always positions herself as the family mediator, immediately jumps in to smooth things over. She tells everyone he's harmless. He's fun. He has an opinion, but so do we all. And Ken accepts every wife in this family. He just said jokes about coming back to the Mormon church. Did you catch that? She reframes a vicious theological attack as a joke. She's protecting Kody's friendship, protecting his ego, trying to keep the peace at all costs. But then there's Christine. Christine does not see a joke. Christine is furious. The script says she takes it completely seriously and is beyond pissed. And to understand why, you have to understand Christine's soul. She didn't just choose polygamy, she was born into it. She grew up in a closed, fearful culture where, as she says in the script, they were afraid of outside people because outside people wanted to separate their family. So when Ken sends that text, Christine doesn't hear a friend joking. She hears the voice of every outside person she was ever warned about. She hears a direct threat to her family's existence. It confirms her deepest, most primal fear. And she needs one thing from Kody. She needs him to stand up, to defend them, to be the patriarch who guards the gate. She demands an apology from Ken. She says, he owes me an apology. For what? For saying, yeah, you're welcome back to the church, but you have to leave 3 of your wives behind. That is not okay. This is Christine drawing a line in the sand. She's saying, if you are part of his family, you cannot let this slide. So what does Kody do? He doesn't stand with her. He turns on her. He tells the cameras that her outrage, her demand for respect, is just princess behavior. He calls it foot stamping and hair tossing. He says, her ego is holding on to this so hard. I swear this is all driven by her pride. Can you believe that? He takes her profound, trauma-informed fear and he pathologizes it. He makes her the problem. He says she's just being dramatic, that she's beating up the whole family with her ego. Let me tell you what this moment was for Christine. It was the moment the light bulb went off. She says in her confessional, that person at that point I realized, you know what, Ken's not safe. But the unspoken, terrifying thought right underneath that is, and if my husband won't protect me from Ken, is my husband safe either? Kody failed the test. He showed Christine that when the outside world attacks their family, his priority isn't defending his wives, it's avoiding conflict with his friends. He showed her that her feelings are not valid, that her fears are an inconvenience. He showed her she was alone. Now, if that text from Ken was a spear thrown from outside the family walls, our next story is about a cancer that was growing silently inside the house. And it centers on the wife who had become a ghost in her own home, Meri. While all this Ken drama is simmering, Meri is in a freefall. And nobody really sees it. In a family meeting, she's trying to explain herself, and she says these heartbreaking words. I do feel isolated. I've been pulling away from the family, 'cause I've been trying to protect them, and I don't know how. I don't know what I need to do. She's not plotting. She's drowning. And she's so lost, she thinks pulling away is a form of protection. And Kody's response to his wife's cry for help? It's not comfort. It's irritation. He snaps at her. Mariah's been gone for 2 years and you still don't know what you're doing, and it's just getting worse. Come on. Come on. Stop being scared and let's move. He treats her existential crisis like a project that's behind schedule. There's zero empathy. Just a boss telling an employee to get it together. Into this vast, echoing emptiness of Meri's life walks the catfish. Now, we have to forget the simplified version of the story. This wasn't Meri shopping for a new husband. Listen to how she describes it in the script. She says talking to this person online gave her a release. She says, we laughed, it just felt really good to laugh. Let that sink in. The most basic human connection, shared laughter, was so absent from her life that getting it from a stranger online felt like a lifeline. It gets more intense. This person starts saying all the things she never hears. He's expressing love, saying flattering things. And Meri admits, I felt flattered. He was making me really start to feel love for who he was portraying himself to be. Notice she says portraying. A part of her knew it was an act. But here's the line that changes everything. The most honest, devastating confession in this whole saga. Meri says, there were times early on that I was talking to him that I knew that he was just feeding me a line of bull. I knew it. And I knew this within the first week of talking to him. And I chose to ignore it because I enjoyed just talking to somebody. This is the core of the tragedy. She knew it was a lie. Her brain saw the red flags. But her heart was so starved, so desperately lonely, that she consciously chose the beautiful lie over the painful truth of her neglect. The crumbs of attention from a predator felt better than the famine in her marriage. Then it turns dark. This person becomes pushy, then almost verbally abusive. Stories don't add up. There's talk of a tech-savvy female friend who could do damage. And Meri arrives at a horrifying conclusion. She tells the camera, I thought I was talking to a man. I think it wasn't a man. It wasn't a man. I believe that it was a woman pretending to be a man. It was a woman who had been watching me online, and I feel like I have been targeted. I feel like my family has been targeted. This shifts it from a sad romance scam to something much scarier. In Meri's mind, this was psychological predation. She believed she was hunted because of her fame, her vulnerability. And what does she do with this terror? The same broken logic her loneliness taught her. She says, I made the conscious decision to start pushing people away because I felt like I needed to protect them. I was afraid of what they could do to the family. Can you feel the tragic irony? To protect her family from a predator she invited in, she isolates herself even more. Her shame and fear are so total, she thinks becoming a solitary target will be a shield. Now, I want you to hold that image. Hold the image of Meri, alone, terrified, believing she's brought a predator to her family's doorstep, and feeling like her only option is to push everyone away to save them. And then ask yourself, where was Kody? Where was her husband during this entire, months-long descent? He wasn't in the emotional trenches with her. The script shows him utterly baffled by her sadness, offering her empty, task-oriented solutions. He was living his life, largely with Robin, while Meri was in a freefall. The catfish didn't break their marriage. It just started growing in the hollow, empty space where their marriage used to be. So now let's connect these two stories. On the surface, they seem different. One's about a text, one's about an online affair. But they are mirror images of the same catastrophic failure. The Ken text was a test of Kody's leadership to the outside world. Could he protect his family's dignity? Could he defend their right to exist against spiritual attack? He failed. He let the attack slide, and then blamed Christine for being hurt by it. He failed as the protector. Meri's catfish was a test of Kody's commitment on the inside. Could he see his wife's pain? Could he offer connection, intimacy, a reason to stay? He failed. He was absent, impatient, and emotionally blind. He failed as a husband. In both cases, a wife looked to the center of her family, to the man who promised to be her leader and partner, and found a void. Christine needed a defender and got a critic. Meri needed a lifeline and got a bystander. And these weren't private failures. The other wives were watching. Janelle saw how Christine was gaslit for having a boundary. She saw her legitimate anger called princess behavior. Robin saw Meri's complete unraveling, saw the family have no idea how to handle it. The message was sent to every single one of them, loud and clear: your emotional safety is not guaranteed here. Your pain might be treated as an inconvenience. You are, in many ways, on your own. This is the poisoned soil in which the seeds of the later divorces were planted. When Christine later argued about moving to Utah, or about money, or about COVID rules, she wasn't just arguing about those things. She was arguing from a place of knowing, deep in her bones, that Kody would not protect her interests. She had learned that lesson with Ken. When Meri clung to the family for years after the catfish, it wasn't just loyalty. It was the fear and shame of someone who believed she had no worth outside of it, a belief cemented by Kody's total neglect. So when we watch the big, blowout fights in later seasons, the screaming matches over property, the custody negotiations, the Christmas from hell, we have to remember this context. We have to remember that by the time those fights happened, the trust was already gone. The emotional bank accounts were bankrupt. Christine wasn't leaving a husband who once had her back. She was leaving a man who had shown her, years earlier, that he wouldn't stand in front of her when the arrows started flying. Meri wasn't clinging to a loving marriage. She was clinging to the skeleton of a relationship that had died from lack of attention long before a catfish ever sent a message. This is the real story. The divorces were just the paperwork. The family ended right here in these moments. It ended with a text message that went undefended, and in a dark room where the only comfort came from a stranger's lie. It's a story about what happens when the person who is supposed to be your shelter becomes the source of a storm. And once that truth settles in a person's heart, leaving isn't an act of betrayal. It's an act of survival. And that brings us to the fallout, because these lessons didn't exist in a vacuum. They echoed through the family, changing how everyone moved. Think about Janelle. She's sitting there, watching the Ken drama. She's the logical one, right? But she's also fiercely independent, and she values fairness. She sees Kody dismiss Christine's very valid feelings as drama. She hears him reduce a principled stand to pride. You don't think Janelle filed that away? You don't think that moment flashed in her mind years later, during their apocalyptic Christmas fight, when Kody was screaming at her, telling her she was gaslighting him, that she was the Teflon queen who never took accountability? Janelle saw the playbook. She saw that when a wife stands up to Kody, he doesn't argue the point, he attacks her character. And she learned to brace for it. And Robin, oh Robin, in this whole Ken situation, she's trying to play peacemaker. He's harmless, it's a joke. But in doing so, she's also subtly telling Christine, your reaction is too big. You're causing problems. She positions herself as the reasonable one, the one who understands Kody's world. This creates a dynamic, a hierarchy. There's Kody, and then there's Robin who gets him, and then there's the other wives who are emotional and difficult. This isn't an accident. This dynamic insulated Robin. It kept her in Kody's good graces, but it also permanently alienated her from the sisterhood. The other wives saw her not as an ally, but as an extension of Kody's will. A mouthpiece, not a sister. But the person who learned the hardest lesson was Meri. After the catfish, her position in the family was forever changed. She wasn't just the first wife anymore. She was the wife who was disloyal, who brought a predator near them. Never mind that she was starving for connection. Never mind that her husband hadn't been a real husband to her in years. The narrative, partly pushed by Kody's distance and the family's confusion, became about her mistake. Her shame became her identity. So she shrunk. She became this apologetic, eager to please Ghost, trying to earn her way back into a family that had no space for her. She offered up her Las Vegas house money for the family property. She agreed to crazy, uneven financial deals. She tolerated being last on the list for everything. Why? Because after your deepest moment of loneliness and terror is met with family-wide bewilderment instead of a rescue party, you stop believing you deserve a seat at the table. You're just grateful they let you in the room. And this is how Kody's dual failure with Ken and with Meri's loneliness didn't just hurt those two wives. It corrupted the entire family ecosystem. It taught the wives they couldn't rely on each other for solidarity against Kody because Robin would always take his side. It taught them that emotional needs were a liability, something that would get you labeled dramatic or a princess. It taught them that the husband's comfort, his social life, his peace of mind, would always come before their sense of security. By the time the big, practical crises hit, the move to Flagstaff, the fight over Coyote Pass, the COVID pandemic, there was no foundation of trust left to fall back on. Every negotiation wasn't a family meeting, it was a cage match. Because Christine wasn't just arguing about a house. She was arguing with the man who left her undefended against Ken. Janelle wasn't just arguing about her boys seeing friends during COVID. She was arguing with the man who called her sister wife prideful for wanting an apology. The past was always in the room, screaming. So when Christine finally said, "I'm done," she wasn't just ending a marriage. She was closing the book on a promise that had been broken years earlier. She was finally responding to that old text message from Ken, the one Kody never answered for her. She was saying, "If you won't protect this family, then I will protect myself and my children from the chaos." Her leaving was the ultimate act of being the protector Kody failed to be. And Meri, when she finally, quietly accepted the divorce from Kody, it wasn't a surprise. It was the long-delayed conclusion to the story that started the day she realized a stranger's fake laugh online meant more to her than her real life. She wasn't leaving a husband. She was finally stopping the search for a husband who had emotionally left her a decade prior. This is why we analyze these early moments. The fireworks at the end are just the building collapsing. But the structural damage, the termites in the support beams, that happened right here. In a living room where a wife's fear was called pride, and in the silent glow of a computer screen where a lonely woman chose a beautiful lie because the truth was too empty to bear. The story of Sister Wives isn't a story about polygamy failing. It's a story about a specific man failing at polygamy. It's about the catastrophic cost of emotional neglect. It's about how you can share a husband, but you cannot share the void where his empathy should be. And once that void becomes the central feature of your home, it's only a matter of time before everyone starts trying to build a new one, somewhere else alone. What do you think? Was Christine overreacting to Ken's text? Or was it the final proof she needed? And did Meri's catfishing scandal change your view of her role in the family? Let me know in the comments below. If you want to see how these emotional cracks led to the financial and structural collapse, the fights over houses, the custody battles, and the epic Christmas blowout between Kody and Janelle, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Part 2 is coming too, and you won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.